primary ignition.
Welcome to Unlimited Power. My name is D-Rod, and this is my guide to building and playing Chewbacca at your local pre-release or sealed event for Star Wars Unlimited's first set, Spark of Rebellion. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Chewbacca does. Chewbacca is a 7-cost leader unit, meaning he needs 7 resources before you can deploy him into the ground arena. When he comes into play, he has an attack of 2 and a health of 9. He has 2 abilities. One is Sentinel, where units in this arena can't attack your non-Sentinel units or your base. This means they have to hit him. Now, Chewbacca has a lot of health, so taking damage is going to be what he's good at, and he's rewarded for it with the Grit ability. He gets +1/+0 for each point of damage on him. This means at most, Chewbacca could have 8 points of damage on him, hit for 10, and still have 1 health remaining. Now, when Chewbacca is not deployed, his ability is a bit different. He gives you an action to where you can exhaust the card, play a unit that costs 3 or less from your hand, and it has Sentinel till the end of the phase. This is going to kind of buy you the time you need. Chewbacca is going to take a while, so putting a card out that can absorb an opponent's damage is going to be beneficial to you. It's just going to be more about what unit you want to use to make that happen. Now, since Chewbacca takes a while to get out and we don't have the same type of ramp as we do in the villain aspect, you're going to have to focus on some sub-themes with him, whether it's Rebel or Force User. Those are going to be the 2 I'm going to tell you to focus on the most. I'd also recommend Spectre as a subtype if you can get the right uncommons. Let's take a look at some of the cards I'd recommend within the leadership aspect. So in the blue-white colors, I'm going to recommend the Forces with me. This is a great card, and you are playing blue-white, so you should have access to a few Force users to maximize this card's potential. When you play this card, you give a unit +2, or give them 2 experience counters, which give them +1/+1. If you control a Force user, give that unit a shield as well, and then you can attack with the chosen unit. This is really good on a damaged Chewbacca or on a lower cost unit like some of the ones we'll talk about in a second. But imagine putting this on a Chewbacca, we're raising their health to 11, they already have 7 or 8 points of damage on them, they now have shield, and they can attack immediately with no repercussion. I think this is just a brilliant card and a great uncommon. Next is Kanan Jarrus. Speaking of great uncommons, this is him. Super good in a limited format, 4 cost, and has the ability on attack to make your opponent discard a card for every Spectre unit you have in play, including himself. So that means at minimum you can make your opponent remove 1 card from their deck that they were hoping to see, and you can heal your base up to the amount of aspects, or different types of aspects I should say, that are discarded. So you can heal up to 2 with 1 attack. The more Spectre units you play, the better Kanan Jarrus is. Lastly is Yoda, a great card to use Chewbacca's ability with because Yoda has 4 health. Some things do not hit for 4, so it may buy you some time. But you're rewarded if Yoda dies because he's going to allow you to draw a card. I think that's super beneficial as you want to keep cards out in your hand as much as you can to keep up with this tempo of getting you to 7 resources. In the hero aspect, I'm going to recommend General Dodonna, a target for all your opponents. They do not want to see Dodonna in play because they know your units are only going to get stronger. Giving that +1/+1 ability can just make a big difference on the arena. So be mindful that you may play it, but it's just there to buy you some time. Next is the Snowspeeder. With the ambush ability, it can make an impact as soon as it hits play, and on attack, and it can exhaust an enemy vehicle ground unit. So those ATSTs, AT-ATs, and other speeders, you can get ahead of them and prevent them from attacking you. And lastly is the Rebel Pathfinder. With Saboteur and a low-cost unit, this card's going to be a target on its own. With Chewbacca, you want to kind of make your opponent avoid your base, and so Saboteur units are going to provide that opportunity or essentially force your opponent to make a decision. Do they allow this low-cost unit that can get past all their sentinels to continue hitting them, or do they waste the time swinging into them themselves, either damaging their own units or trading? In the Vigilance aspect, I'm going to recommend Moment of Peace, and here's why. Yes, it's 1. Yes, it only gives a shield, but imagine this setting. You get Chewbacca out. He has 7 or 6 damage points on him, meaning he's already hitting for 8 or 9 damage. But he can only take 2 more before he dies. He has Sentinel, so he has to be attacked. Use Moment of Peace to give Chewbacca a shield. Take advantage of his high attack power. Let him take some damage points and then continue to put shields on him. That way, you're taking advantage of how hard he can hit, and he can stay alive a couple of actions longer. Wilderness Fighter is a little bit similar to this. It has a shield when it enters play. Use Chewbacca's leadership ability to put it into play with Sentinel. It has a shield, and it should be able to survive at least, possibly 2 actions. If it can survive 2 actions and then swing, that's going to be a pretty great value for this card. And next is Vanquish. You're playing a high-cost leader, so you're going to have the resources to pay for this card, and you'll be able to defeat non-leader units that are just too much trouble for you and Chewbacca. We're talking about like AT-ATs, Imperial Star Destroyers, Mace Windu, the other Luke Skywalker, things like that. Just big units that hit hard that you don't want taking out your Chewbacca leader. In the cutting aspect, I'm going to recommend Rogue Operative. We've already talked about why the Saboteur ability makes sense, but that Raid 2 is more pressure. Your opponent's going to be forced to want to hit that 4/4 that can get past all their Sentinels. Chewbacca, the unit, is also great just because it has that Sentinel ability. It can untap every time it's attacked, and you can get an extra 3 points of damage in. And lastly is Ezra Bridger, an amazing Force user who has the ability, when they complete an attack, to look at the top card of your deck. If you may play it, discard it, or leave it, as long as you have the resources. So I think this card is really good. It pairs well with what you're doing, and it just gives you a little bit more access. Rogue Operative and Bridger both have 4 health, so using Chewbacca's ability to give him Sentinel for a phase means they'll probably survive. In the aggression aspect, I'm going to recommend Sabine Wren, a small Spectre unit, not one you really want to use Chewbacca's ability with, but it has a potential of getting through and doing a few points of damage. It's a great uncommon to pick up, and it works with the Spectre ability. Infiltrator skill going to improve one of your units by giving them the Saboteur keyword and a +1/+1. And lastly is Open Fire. Dealing 4 damage to a unit is pretty powerful. We've already seen several units in this build alone that have 4 health. So you can see why Open Fire is great to pick up. So you have some options to deal with those low-cost units and a few leaders in the game. Lastly is the command aspect, with resupply being your first choice so that way you can play Chewbacca maybe 1 or 2 turns earlier. It seems like a good move. Mon Mothma is a great card as well because she's going to search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Rebel card. This is great considering some Force users are Rebel and all Spectres are Rebel. And lastly is Mercenary Company. This card is not one that can benefit you with Chewbacca's ability, but when it comes into play, it makes a difference. Ambush and Overwhelm. You do want Chewbacca to come into play when there's less units on your opponent's battle arena, and I think Mercenary Company can help you clear that board just a little bit of something big. You want Chewbacca to survive. You don't really want to see him take a huge hit and be knocked out so quickly. Anyway, this is my guide to building a Chewbacca deck. Thanks for looking at these commons and uncommons with me. I hope to hear that your sealed event goes really well. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again, and may the Force be with you.